Welcome back to another episode of We Talk Fit
with Mish and Dean.
Wanted to have a little bit of a chat about parental influence or mentor sort of for children and young adolescents, basically. So even though they're like adolescents, they're anywhere up to 16, 17, 18 years old, they're always watching what other people are doing and not necessarily having to listen, but they're watching what it could be parents, it could be other people in the gym, it could be people down the street, basically.
You could almost say role models in a sense, because that could be many different people.
Yeah. So a little bit in regards to your diet, your training, your lifestyle, and what they see at home as well.
It's a tough one. You've got like even so-called professionals, like good professionals will always say, look, this is based on my knowledge and my experience, this is my opinion. Mm-hmm. But you've also got like there's so many professionals giving like bullshit advice when it's not a professional, but they've heard it from one of those people and then they're passing it down like Chinese whispers. You've got that side of it. You've got people like a little ill-informed or a little ill-advised, educated, passing advice to kids or adolescents or younger people. Yeah. But even like I know adults that have listened to some pretty shitty advice from people, jumped on it. Whether it's like the nutrition side of things or the training side of things. Like how many times have we seen someone doing an exercise a certain way, and if you and that's fine. Like there is different setups for things. You might approach that with them and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, why? Yeah. Have you is there a reason you got that set up, or this guy told us to do this, or were you thinking more down the nutrition side of things, or just a bit of
bit in general? So a little bit down the nutrition as well, just in regards to so if there's a diet out there that it's become a phase and it's like a bit of a fad diet now, and as a parent or a role model you're trying that diet, your kids are watching. And sometimes those diets you've got to be very careful with what they're actually intended for. So there's certain diets out there that it might be a quick fat loss sort of diet that actually might be intended for people with surgery.
Yeah, that could, definitely.
And then people jump on that bandwagon because it's a really quick.
But that's that whole context piece, right? Mm-hmm. Like if there's a certain situation and things might be in place, like say for a reason, that's very different to just going, oh, well, I've heard that this works for this, set of benefits. I'm just going to do that. Yeah,
it is very, very different. So there's been teenagers that will watch their parents go through a certain diet because they need to do it for a reason. And say it's worked or whatever, but it's actually for a medical reason. Yeah. And then they jump on that bandwagon. And then they don't actually know all the ins and outs of the diet, but they just hear one facet of it.
Yeah.
And they go, all right, well, I need to do that all the time, instead of going and actually talking to their parents, or parents being open with their children a little bit more while they're doing it or how they're doing it.
I think, there's like, if I'm going to generalize it, so like obviously certain examples, you might find that someone's been put on something specific for an anti-inflammatory response, perhaps, or, a certain food group might be causing an inflammatory response. So that's a little bit different, and obviously it's difficult for us to talk about that because we don't, unless we know a certain case scenario. But what we could talk about is, certainly for me, I feel very passionate about what our kids see from us, or even as just adults and role models. It doesn't have to be our kids. Yeah, we're around a lot of sporting kids and stuff, and I think it's really important, both the exercise piece and the nutrition piece, what they see us doing. So on a personal level, like, I still pretty old-fashioned with the whole moderation is probably the most reasonably beneficial diet. Yeah. Find what works. Make sure you get enough protein, certain amount of fat, certain amount of carbs for the amount of fuel you require for whatever
for
you're
what
doing, and go with it. But on a recent note, we've been trying the carnivore diet to see how that goes, and that's not saying that the carnivore diet's the one to jump on and the best thing to do. We've been trying it because we wanted to see what it was like, right?
Yeah.
And speak from experience. So if I look at my kids as the example of that, they'll see what I'm doing. I'll explain why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I try and educate my kids on the very base level of knowledge that I've got on nutrition, about protein sources, fat sources, what those things do for your body. But then I'll also be saying to them, both my kids are very active.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
I wouldn't be recommending this for you at the moment because you've got a game of footy tomorrow. So what we're going to do tonight, Dylan, is we're going to carb load you.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not just like so myopic that I think what I'm doing is the only way.
Yeah.
You have to be open-minded
So you're being
enough.
open with your kids, and that's the biggest thing. So you know that he needs carbs for his footy game, and you're explaining why he needs that and why he's doing that. So you're being open as to why you're trying something, and you're doing something different to what you're actually supplying him.
Yeah.
And giving him in that information, and that's being open with your child and teaching him how that's going to actually improve his game, potentially give him that energy for that game instead of being so fatigued.
Yeah. So that's how I approach that side of stuff when my kids are watching what I'm doing. I think because obviously kids are going to pick up on whatever they see, right? And if they see enough of something, like whether it be their own parents or they see they're in a gym and they see the certain individuals doing certain exercises all the time, that's what they're going to be influenced by. So it's a huge responsibility as an adult, the message that we pass down. So that's just what they're seeing. But then like I've just mentioned, there's also, if you're going to take that further and actually start vocalizing that advice, actually saying this is good, this is bad, be informed with that. You know, we've studied hard to understand things, and that's why we feel we can offer a bit of advice.
Yeah.
And obviously we've got a lot of experience too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do hear some pretty crappy advice coming from some parents, and I'm not judging anyone on their parenting ability, because
they only know what they know.
Yeah. I mean more about, if it's not your wheelhouse, probably don't preach that it's the only way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be open-minded enough to say, look, this is what I'm doing and I feel this, but speak to this person about this, or do some research, particularly if it involves like sort of teenage kind of years, because it's so important for the development.
Development and learning at that age is next level. So that's where a lot of their values and beliefs will come from as they grow up. Obviously it changes.
Like that whole relationship with food as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want them building like really horrible habits. And it's really difficult these days because everything's so instantaneous and convenient.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to teach my kids, or like, you know, the footy boys that come to see me or whatever, I kind of try and father them all, really.
Yeah.
With just, look, hey, you want to grab a bag of shapes, or you go and get a Macca's or something, that's okay. Like we've chatted before, one Macca's isn't going to make anyone overweight, but if that is going to become the norm, then I'll start talking to them like, is that much processed food really going to take you towards where you want to be?
Yeah.
Or is it possibly taking you away from where you want to be?
Where you want to be.
Even if it's not a specific goal, sporting goal, whatever, it might just be, I just want to be happier on the footy field, right? And I'm using footy all the time because it's easy for me to drop into. Is if you had a Macca's every day, would it help you get towards where you want to be? Or that's sometimes how I'll get that message across. But as far as, because I've had, you know, clients, friends, family ask me questions about this stuff quite often. You know, I want my daughter to, you know, eat more of this or eat less of this, or my son or whatever, and you've got to be careful because you're trying not to tell them how to parent, but that's immediately an opportunity where you're going to steer the course of that young person's thinking. And look, a lot of kids now are a lot stronger mentally than we think. So they might take that and go, you know what, I'm sure I heard something contrary to that.
Mm-hmm.
But they might not. So we've just got to be careful with what knowledge we pass, because it is steering them a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's outside of my wheelhouse, I just wholeheartedly just go, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to research it.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to ask someone that because I've obviously got a network of people that I trust, you being one of them. I'm going to reach out and speak to someone that knows more than me about that specific topic.
Yeah.
And I'll relay that back, because one thing I'm better at is communicating it, but it might be that the knowledge base isn't quite there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to go and try and make something up and go, oh, I think this, but
that's kind of where we're at, especially with like the social media type of stuff. Is people will see that stuff in a 30-second reel and feel that it's gospel, because it might have come from a good source too.
Yeah.
But it's very like narrowed down, isn't it?
Yeah.
And zero context.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be responsible if you're going to give advice out, whether as a parent, as an adult, as a role model. And I would I obviously want to delve deep into the exercise side of that as well, because that's just as big an issue.
Yeah.
You know, telling people how to train and what to train, and I come across like pushy parents wanting so much for their kids in sport all the time. So yeah, it's
I've come across that side of things with parents pushing their kids with their sports, and like overdoing it. So
what the training side of it.
Yeah, training and being enrolled in so many different sports. I've
got an interesting piece on this. I literally read it last night, so I'll let you do that bit, and then I want to.
So being involved in different sports is fine. That's great, because they want to actually have a go at different things to know what they want to do or want to get into.
Yeah.
But when you're enrolled in, say, 3 teams for the same sport, so then you've got 3 games, you might have 3 trainings, or you might even have 5, because some of those teams might have 2 trainings a week, you know, and then the stress that's putting on the body as well.
From a recovery point of view. So are you thinking more down the lines of just the volume?
That they're then doing. Yeah.
So I'd obviously agree with you on that. Interestingly enough, so I've, I'm very fortunate that my kids are talented in their different sporting fields. So I've found myself sort of starting down that thing where you go, is it time that they specialise in? You really go hard in one direction and stuff, and it's really tempting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of noise about that. Interestingly enough, that whole thing we've just been talking about with nutrition and being open-minded, listening to other sources, I try my best to do that. And what I've found is looking at the data. So to quote, 2018 NFL draft in the US, 29 out of 32 draftees were multi-sport athletes in college.
Yeah.
So these kids have enough talent and promise, and probably genetics being at NFL, strength, conditioning, size, to be drafted for big clubs to take a punt on them, to be drafted into the NFL. But all of their experience has been multi-sport, right to the collegiate level.
Yeah,
to that point. Basketball, soccer, hockey, probably rugby, those sorts of things. And it's a real interesting one about, I think sometimes, as long as time's not a constraint, and definitely recovery and volume, there's a really big argument to be made for, being fluid in lots of different movement types. Yeah.
I think it's actually needed, that side of things. It's and a lot of the times you'll find that those sports that they're doing, those multi-sports that they're doing, crossover.
100%.
So it might be basketball and netball, it might be football and rugby, it might be, or soccer. They all sort of cross over with what they do. They don't sort of, it's not like they're doing bowls.
They're not too far apart. Yeah. They're not too far apart.
Yeah. With their style.
I definitely see. I actually think they can help. Certain sports can really help each other. Basketball can help footy, with that mark and like the different ball size, but the same reaction speed and stuff. And Your soccer skills can obviously help you out there and things. So a lot of those sports can
Intertwine.
work together. But I just thought it was a really interesting actual number to go, holy smoke.
Yeah.
You know, because I have a fair few clients of that sort of early, mid-teen demographic.
Yeah.
Where it's where a lot of kids would start specializing.
Yeah. So I remember reading one a while back, like a study, and it was children who do end up trying to specialize, or the parents get them into specialized sports really early on, like pre-teens basically, is they end up actually getting sick of the sport.
Yeah.
You know, they're sort of pushing that. Oh, this is a sport that you're going to play. This is this is a sport you're going to play. This is, you know, where you're going and whatnot. But they end up actually getting sick of the sport and resenting the sport. And you know, they were heading in a really good way, but then they weren't allowed to play any other sports because that was the one that they were aiming for and driving for. And then they're just like, I had enough. Can't do it anymore.
I mean, the reason I came across that little bit there and some other stuff around it was I was reading some stuff about rehab of injuries, soft tissue, connective tissue.
Yep.
And what you'll find it was all demographics, it wasn't just young people, but when you are so rigid in one movement type, so if it's one sport, it's constantly going to be this. So if it's footy, for instance, got a lot of hamstring, a lot of hip flexor, knees perhaps, but it's a lot of the same movement. That's a repetitive strain injury waiting to happen. And what they're saying is the multi-sport background isn't necessarily, you know, going to take you from a B player to an A player, but what it's going to do is all of those other tendons, ligaments, cartilage, connective tissue things are being used in different motions.
Yep.
So you're prehabbing yourself to a lot of potential RSI.
Yeah.
So that was why I came across it. And then I was looking for some numbers that actually backed it up.
Yeah, cool.
Which I thought was really, really interesting.
I like that. That's cool. Yeah. Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense.
So it's just whether you want to, and we're not, what you were saying about the multi-sport thing wasn't negating what I'm saying about the connective tissue. It was more just volume.
But 100%, yeah. So,
and recovery.
Yeah. So like having, say you're playing 4 games of footy a week because you're in this squad, that squad, your local club, then association level or something like that. And then having those games and then all those trainings, and then, you know, you're overdoing yourself because it's full games, and you just got to be very wary of how much you're putting your body through.
Yeah.
Or as a parent, looking at your kid and making sure, you know, are they falling behind in their schoolwork? Are they falling behind they're falling asleep at the dinner table?
Yeah.
You know, those basic health things as well when you're overdoing it. And then the stress,
markers,
you know, are they failing all their subjects at school because they're under so much pressure in all these other areas? You know, so it's just watching all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, I guess in the same way that you would with your own health or with your partner's health or, you know, friends and colleagues, if you see other markers, stress levels getting raised, have they been more susceptible to bugs and viruses and all of that jazz? Is the nervous system just generally run down?
Yeah.
And that's that volume and recovery thing. Doesn't even have to be an athlete, does it?
No,
you got someone coming in the gym. If they suddenly go from not training much to training 5 days a week, they're going to burn out pretty quick. Yeah. They'll get some great response, but if the recovery is not there.
Yeah. You know, could be a CEO or manager or just your general office worker. If you've got a really stressful job, you got children at home, you got all these other life commitments, and then you're trying to, you know, do your 5 days a week training and stuff as well. It's making sure that whatever you are doing, it's actually going to benefit the stresses of life and not make it worse.
I think that's where the professional comes in as well, though. Really, because like I quite often with clients and chats, I'll come across a little bit softer, and you know, I'm trying to be sympathetic to stresses and people's other commitments, but I just want to clarify that there's a difference between that and finding a way out, an excuse.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so I do encourage people to move and encourage people to train hard and train heavy and all in respect to what they're capable of and things. But that's where the professional comes in to structure that.
Yeah.
Whether it's a program or some advice in a conversation from someone that you trust and that you've had a few opinions of different things. So we've kind of gone full circle back to, do you listen to one person?
Yeah.
But yeah, train properly as often as you can, as heavy as you can, all relevant context applied.
Yeah.
And then recover.
And recovery, sleep, food, hydration.
Well, yeah. So like if we're saying training, we're gonna put under the label of it's a stressor to your body. So nutrition's a stressor. Stress at work's a stressor. Like all of these different things, and you need the right amount of recovery from all of them. Yeah. So just be responsible with advice. Think about who's listening. If
Think
you
about
don't
where
know,
you're getting that advice from.
Yeah, you only know what you know, and if you're not, be very careful about trying to sound, a lot more qualified than you are. Like I hold my hands up and say, hey.
If I don't know something, I'm like, oh yeah, not sure on that one. I'll have to look into it. I'll have to research that, or have to ask someone that I know that knows more than me. I got asked about a supplement yesterday, and I was like, you know what? I know what it is. I don't know the exact process that it sort of stimulates. I'm going to investigate it for you and pass it on. I think we're going to do a bit of a chat on supplements at some point, so we might talk about that. But yeah, I just think be more responsible with your advice. Yeah, that's where I would go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agree.
Cool.